than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain dollars, they watch me disappear.
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the Nobswithbirchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch, and this is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Guys and girls, just wanted to talk about something that I thought was really relevant. The last 18 months, 24 months, there's been so many people getting into the property market, lots of first-time investors, first-time buyers, lots of firsts for lots of people. And lots of people are still sitting on the fence. They go, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I had gotten earlier, or I'll do this when this happened, or they're fearful about the interest rates, whatever the case may be. And today I wanted to talk about first-time fears. So first-time fears being all different areas of investing. And I'm thinking back to, what fears people have when I help them buying properties. I think about the fears that I had myself when I first started investing, even though it's a very long time ago now. And I think about all the things that people that aren't even investors fear about, right? And the fear, why? Like, why isn't everyone, a super awesome investor like all of our clients that we look after? They've got 10, 15, 20, 30 properties. And I think a lot of it is the fear to actually take action. They're just too scared, or they don't have knowledge. And, some people visualize things well. Some people want to hear things. Everyone's way of processing is very different. And some people are very analytical and they want to have every answer before they make a decision. That can be good, that can be bad, and the psychological sort of aspects of investing is very important because, a lot of all the mistakes that I could say that I've made over the last 20 years of investing, 98% of them would be due to opportunity costs. The rest of them are just like little shit that, really irrelevant in the journey. The biggest mistakes have been the opportunity cost. And most of the opportunity cost has either come from not having resources, being more money, which is always the issue for everybody, myself, you guys, everyone watching. But the other part of it was, the opportunity cost, or the monkey on my shoulder, specifically in the early years. Don't do this, don't do that. And if I have so much knowledge on something, I'll go all in. Right? I will go all in and make that plunge. Most people go, I'll dabble my foot over here, I'll dabble my foot over there, and very, very scared. And that's, everyone's different. But fears, what sort of fears are common ones that I see on a day-to-day basis with just new investors? What happens if interest rates go up? Let's look at what happens if interest rates go up. If interest rates go up, lots of people will be in trouble. But the last time interest rates went up was in 2010. So 12 years ago was the last interest rate increase. The media has said many, many times over the last 12 years, interest rates will be going up. Just think about it. How many times in the last 12 years have you heard interest rates are going to rise and they haven't gone up? The RBA has not increased interest rates. All they've done is lower them. Put a buffer in place. If you're worried about interest rates going up, fix the interest rates. It's not I'm not a fan of fixing interest rates because I know I'm taking a bet against the bank, and the bank has a lot more resources than you and I to make that decision. So you could fix the interest rates if you're too scared, but at the same time, just buffer and make sure you've got a strong enough cash flow to take care of an extra 1% interest rate. So if you've got a 200 grand property, and let's say 200 grand loan, and the interest rate on it is 3%, and it might go to 4 or even 5%, 200 grand at 1% is $2,000 a year. 200 grand at 2% is $4,000 a year. So all you need to look at is go, okay, well, if the property's bringing me $4,000 a year positive cash flow, if it goes up by 2%, that means they're not going to be positive cash flow. That's the worst case that's going to happen. Make sure that you put buffers and parameters in place. So look at whatever your fear or problem is and then work out a solution to it. I had 3 fears at the start. I remember going to Queensland in 2004, 2005. I think it was 2000. It was 2005. I was with a girlfriend that I was dating at the time, and it was like, let's go up for Christmas holidays. We get 2 weeks off in the year and go to all the movie world, dream world, and all that sort of stuff. And it was before the internet, right? Like everyone has their phone, they have stuff that they can just click of the finger, they can get access to Google Street View, previous sales data, all that sort of stuff. Looking at back in 2005, that didn't exist. So I went on this holiday, and I remember going to these areas around Brisbane, like Logan and, those rougher sort of areas. I didn't know anything about the area. I just heard you could buy a townhouse for 40 grand, 50 grand. And I went there and thought about it, and I could have bought townhouses at $50,000. And they were renting for 110 a week. And I thought, well, that's a good return. That's like a 10% return on that property. So I looked at it, thought about it, and I got fearful. I retracted. I never bought there. And the reason why I didn't buy there is that I had a fear that I'd seen family and friends that had lost money in the late 90s, early 2000s, where people would fly. There was these salespeople that would put you in a car that'd fly you to Queensland, they'd sell you a house and land package, and the thing was like $100,000, $200,000 overpriced. And you went back home, you didn't know anything about the market, there wasn't any data, and you would, you'd be paying 20 years later, you'd be paying off this property that still hadn't caught up to what its real value was. So I was fearful that Queensland didn't go up in value based on other people's knowledge. I had a fear that if a tap broke, I wouldn't be readily available to fix that problem. So I didn't want to buy it because of that. And then I thought about it, and I thought, strata and townhouse and all that may not go up. I'd only bought houses at that point. So my first 7 or 8 properties were all houses. I hadn't bought anything beyond like an hour away from where I lived, and I had a fear because I'd seen other people go broke over buying stupid property. Reality is that I don't change tap washers. I'm a property investor, not a tradie. I leave that, I outsource that. Properties do go up in Queensland. They've gone up crazy. My fears were based on, unwarranted sort of things. The numbers tell you the truth. So there's a lot of knowledge out there. There's a lot of research into numbers. So you can hop on any website and go and check out if this property is 200 grand and everything else is 300 grand, you can see the value around it. You can see that you're not paying overs for it. It's not just cheap because it's cheap. So you want to look at whatever your fear is, and you want to turn it around and go, okay, if I've got this big fear, how can I minimize all that risk that I'm scared about? But people just look at it and they try and justify it, right? And what I've realized over 20 years of doing this is that it's easier to blame something than to take responsibility or do the hard yards and take action. And people will use fear as an excuse. Oh, I couldn't do it because of this. I couldn't do it because of that. I have shit going wrong every day of the week. And, I still make things happen, right? Some people say they have a problem. Well, I've got hundreds of problems. I've got thousands of problems, but I don't sit there and dwell on them and go, okay, that's a problem. I need to attend to it, I need to fix it. But most people will get that big fear and then just make it bigger and bigger and bigger and go, well, I can't do it because of this. And if you want to do that, that's fine, right? You can keep in your job and keep being safe and not invest. That's fine. But look at your fears and try and assess them and know why have you got the fear. Other fears I have, people saying, their family members told them advice, their friends told them advice, they'd seen on the news, right? I've been on the news over 100 times over the years. I stopped giving a crap about going in the media because, whenever I go in the media, I could tell some very great content that could make lots of people lots of money and the community service announcement, right? Which would be basically what we talk about on the podcast, on YouTube, on our webinars, on all my educational material. I could share that on the news and make lots of people lots of money. The reality of it is that they try and get for personal agendas certain things, right? So they will they'll film you for an hour. They'll try and get you to say a couple of things. They'll cut those words and then they'll put their own storyboard behind it, their own narrative behind it, and put some other people into the article as well and have it as a political agenda or as an interest rate agenda or as a propaganda to try and get other people to buy into the market. And I realized that if there was so much, I wouldn't say fraud, that's in the financial system, but if there was so much like programming and agenda and manipulation behind what I saw in the media, sitting on a news desk, reading out stuff to the public. Most of the scripting is from a teleprompter behind a camera. And looking at that, I thought, wow, a lot of this is a big web of programming here, right? And I think about it and go, I know that 90% of the stuff that's being said around the space of property, I see the agenda or the lies or whatever, whether it be property or or any sort of financial market sort of research into, I can call out bullshit when I see it, and 90% of that is bullshit. And then it makes me go to think, well, I'm no scientist, I'm no doctor, I'm no expert on military, geopolitical, what other things are being lied to in the media. So do question what's right in the media and what's not right in the media, because I've been put on the media many, many times for many, many different agendas of what they try to put in, whether it's this poor kid from Western Sydney, whether it's this successful property investor, whether this guy's got hundreds of properties, whether they want me to talk about business success or whatever. And yeah, the real data doesn't get put forward. I see so many people out there with certain agendas that go into the media, so that fear is very, very much, driven for other sort of third-party agendas. So what other fears are there? There's people that are, getting information from their Uncle Bob or whoever the person is that's saying, don't do this, do what I've done, whatever the case may be. You've got to think about whoever it is that you're getting the advice from, right? If there's a fear, go, okay, Uncle Bob said not to do this. Uncle Bob told me to do that. Think about what has Uncle Bob done in his life, right? There's all these people that are out there to tell you what to do, but have they done what you want to do? Do they have any, real substance behind telling you to do what you want to do? If you do what someone tells you to do or does themselves, you'll become that person because you'll be doing the same habits, the same beliefs, the same things that you're doing. So be very careful where you take that information from fears. What other things are there? What happens if I lose my job? What happens if something goes wrong? We're planning to have kids. We're planning on moving. Lots of things come in with fears. Well, that's good. If you lose your job, firstly, you'd want to make sure that you've got some other sort of income stream, right? I know in 2020, when the world changed, everyone went weird and things went weird. A lot of people lost their jobs. They didn't have income coming through. A lot of my community, a lot of my investors, a lot of people I know still had cash flow coming from their properties because they had two income streams. So if you've got a fear of something going wrong, what can you do to fix it? So work out a strategy to have more cash flow. I don't have enough money to get into it. Well, what can you do, right? Nothing in life worthwhile is ever easy, and everything has some sort of cost attached to it. So, there's been so many sacrifices, so many commitments over the years, and I wouldn't have my life any other way because I'm happy with the results of the choices that I've taken. There's times where I've sold my car and driven a $500 car. There's times, at the moment, I think I'm driving a $10,000 Great Wall Ute, right? Who gives a shit, right? I've got a new car coming shortly, whatever. But when I sold my previous car, and the new car's stuck in production, right? It's a lot longer than what I thought it was going to take. This is a side story. But when I sold the car, I was like, okay, I've got the cash. What do I do with it? I can put it into a property, right? So many people sitting there with lots of options at their disposal, but they're not actually actioning them. They're just using them as a mask or an excuse or a reason as to why they can't do something. What happens if a tenant trashes a property? Well, that's a good fear, right? Tenants trash properties every day of the week. I've got hundreds of them. I manage thousands of properties, tens of thousands of properties that I've helped people buy and see and all their experiences and hear about their stories as well. And people trash things, right? It does happen. Don't be fearful of it. It's something that happens, right? When you should be fearful is when you try to cut corners and you don't have good systems, processes, procedures, and strategies. What I mean by that is have a good property manager, screen out crappy tenants, make sure that you've got insurances in place, make sure that you're doing regular checks on your property. If you're doing regular checks, your property manager's checking it every quarter, every 3 or 4 months, 5 months, whenever it is that they're checking it, you're seeing your property and you go, okay, this property's in good condition. Okay, the property's looking a bit rough. Who put that hole in the wall? You can see things happening. You can address it quicker before it turns to bad or to a pile of crap. If you have insurance in place, if the tenant trashes the house, then the insurance company gives you the money to go and paint it and carpet it. And some situations, you actually end up with a new painted property or a new carpeted property, and the property may not have been freshly carpeted, freshly painted. So you've got a better property after that occurs. So you want to minimize risk. You want to have strategy. What happens if it's vacant and you can't get a tenant in the property? Well, you want to do your research right. You want to buy the property right. You want to make sure that you've calculated your numbers correctly. You want to make sure that you've bought it in an area which has got enough demand. You want to work your cash flow based on the fact if the rent was to drop, how would you look financially? What would your financial position look like if the market had dropped by $50 per week. So when I purchase a property, I think, okay, what's a low rent and what's a high rent? If the low rent's, I don't know, $200 a week, and the higher rent's $280 a week, don't base everything on 300, base it on 240, 250. 280 is great. 200, what would your position look like if you got it at that? So you want to factor these things in. What happens if, I lose the property? I don't want to go bankrupt. Well, put a buffer in place. Make sure that you've got $5,000 or $10,000. If something goes wrong, you can repair the property. You can pay the mortgage for 6 months without any tenant in the property. If you had no job, you've got a buffer there to protect it, whatever the case may be. So I'm just trying to think what other sort of fears and hurdles that people have. Looking at, I had a couple of notes here. I think I've gone more into what I even had as notes, but one of the biggest fears is what's in between our head, I guess, and the analyst paralysis of deals. People will overanalyze things. People will think too much about, this or that, or they're going to do this or they're going to do that. And procrastinating and having analyst paralysis is probably one of the biggest hurdles that I've seen. People may go and watch every seminar that's out there. They may watch every video. You might be watching this video and think, I've listened to Birchy for 10 years, right? And why didn't you do something, right? You've been watching for 10 years. Why didn't you go out there and do it? What I love is when I see people just randomly in the street and they're like, Birchy, I got into property because of you, or whatever the case may be. That's something that, gets me really excited. But I know from seeing how many views, seeing how many people have watched, I don't know how many people have done and moved on and progressed and got themselves to what they wanted to do. So that procrastination, that analyst paralysis, you know what you need to do to get to your position. Why aren't you doing it? The fear as well may be that they're missing something, right? So you might have all the knowledge, and then with that knowledge, you just get too fearful. You think of too many what ifs. That's in your head. That's a problem that you need to overcome and break through that, because, you can protect that you've got no investment property so you don't have any problems, or you can get enough knowledge, go out there and take action. And let's say you've got 10 properties, you've got 10 properties that could get damaged. You've got 10 properties that tenants may not be in. You've got 10 properties to worry about. You've got 10 different things, right? If you don't take action, you don't have the assets. So it's important to have the knowledge, but then take action upon that knowledge. A lot of people fear the analyst paralysis side of things, but then I see on the back of that, there's a lot of people that are gonna do this. There's a lot of people that are gonna do that. There's a lot of people that, have these great intentions that say, whatever, but they might be watching too much Tony Robbins, right? They might be, trying to do too much, boom, boom, whatever it is, right? They might be trying to do too much firewalking, right? The thing is that lots of people say they're going to do things, but they don't do stuff. They actually just end up procrastinating. And I feel, from what I see out there, is that may be an uncertainty. So it's very different to analyst paralysis, because analyst paralysis, you have all the information, but procrastinating and being a gunner, you may be missing out on parts of the information, which can either make you too, greedy, or too aggressive, or could make you too conservative from not having enough information. So make sure that you have strategy. Strategy is very, very crucial. If you don't have a strategy, if you have strategy, if you had a roadmap and you know that you need to leave your house at 8:50 in the morning, you get to destination at 10:30, you drive here, turn left, drive 20 kilometers, turn right. Sound like Siri on the sat nav or whatever. But the thing is that having that clarity, you know where you're going. So you're much more comfortable. Your fears are answered. If you think that you're going to be running late, you leave at 8:40 and you've built in 15 minutes as a buffer to ensure that if you get stuck in traffic, you're not going to be late for your 10:30 appointment. So, planning, strategy, having a plan of attack will help minimize risk, remove fears, and having those holes sort of answered. The other thing that I think people fear, and this goes back to one of the earlier things that I commented on, and that's like your Uncle Bob or whatever, your neighbor, your parent, your cousin, your brother, sister, whatever, giving you the advice. Having a bad team around you is very bad, right? You need to have a good team that understand how to get you to where you need to be. And I'm not just talking about, property or whatever. If you're in business, you need the best accounts person. If you're in business, you need the best HR person. If you're in business, you need the best marketing team. If you're in business, you need the best, whoever you need, CEO, CFO, any person in your business. So when it comes to your property investing, you want to be treating your property investing like a business as well, and making sure that you've got the right broker, you've got the right lenders on board, you've got the right accountant, you've got the right planner, you've got the right lawyer, you've got the right buyer's agent, you've got the right property manager. You want to make sure that everybody is in sync and has clarity, and they know how to help you. When they see your plan and they see your goals and they see your property acquisition strategy, they can go, okay, yes, I know how to get you from here to there. There might be these hurdles, whatever, and if they can't explain on how to get you there, you may need to look at getting yourself new team members in your success team around you. So, a lot of people try to do things themselves. A lot of people try and cut things out. As a business owner, I remember when I first started, I used to make these YouTube videos myself. I didn't have money from my business. I had no revenue. It's just over years I built revenue streams. But when I first started, I used to cut up the videos myself. It would take me 16 hours. I'm not a web designer. I'm not going to create my own website. I'm not a tradie, so I'm not going to go and, build a house, right? You need to make sure you get the right people that can bring you the right result in budget, in schedule, on track, on time, in line with that plan and the strategy that you have. So yeah, on that note, lots of fears that people have. It's normal to have fears. If you don't have fears, you're going to have problems, right? Because you're going to be too fearless and you're just going to take on all these decisions without having the fear in the first place. It's important to have fear. It's also important to, take action. So if you need help on formulating a strategy, getting that plan together, feel free to reach out to my team. You know where to reach us, 1300 367 925. Email us at admin@binvested.com.au. Keep watching these videos. Keep listening to the podcast. You can find us at Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube. Keep looking at the information. Make sure you've got enough knowledge, you have strategy, and that you actually take action. And make sure you don't sit here in another 5 years' time or 10 years' time and think, why didn't I take this action? If you do have questions, if you do, want me to cover something on an upcoming podcast or YouTube video, please email my team at marketing@binvested.com.au. Tell them what questions you'd like answered, and my team will put in a schedule for us to cover on an upcoming episode of our No BS with Birchy podcast. Have a great day. Keep being awesome. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Joint be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system, enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I've never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, the Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really misbehaving.